Hello, this is Miss Tesh, uDAPS. Welcome again. It's been a while. I was back, then I disappeared again, and then I was back. The devil is a liar, and he will never win. So welcome. Today, I have an interesting topic. You might wonder why I'm dressed in black clothes with a hoodie on. Well, the topic is synonymous to this dress code. But funny enough, it's actually a societal misconception. But anyway, that's another topic for another day. Today, I'm talking about depression. Uh, it's something that has been part of my life for a long time. At first, it wasn't diagnosed, and then it was diagnosed, and then woo, pills, pills are delish. But I bring it up today because of an unfortunate event that happened to my family, a suicide, and also this life happening to a lot of people. So I'll start by defining depression, as I always do, define things for people. Depression, as I understand it, is basically characterized by persistent sadness. Like a pale, it's always there. You're constantly sad. You can't explain it. You just don't want to do the things that you used to do or liked doing, like waking up in the morning. You don't want to wake up, like, and it really affects your sleep. You either sleep very late, or you don't want to sleep, or you'll sleep too much. It's one of the two, and loss of appetite. Interestingly, for me, it was the gain of appetite. I wanted to eat, fill myself up to death, you know, and then energy levels. Literally having no ambition, no need, no want, no energy levels. Doesn't matter how many Red Bulls you drink, energy levels are not there, you know. And my psychologist, or back in the day when it was first described to me, I was just like, what's wrong with me? And the first thing my psychologist had mentioned was scientifically serotonin levels. It's quite a lot. And so something in the brain stops producing something else that makes something else work. And so I'm not going to go into that and try and explain that, because I'm not a scientist, and neither am I a biologist, neither am I a doctor or a psychologist. But one day, when one of my psychologists, one of the psychologists that I'm hoping to get on to this podcast, tells us what depression is from psychological perspective of the chemicals. Okay, so I think what is interesting is the common misconception of basically what depression is. Like, for example, sadness is normal, right? And happiness is normal, and all those things, all those feelings that you feel. And what is interesting, the misconception is happy people don't have depression. That is a huge misconception. Because sometimes you try and fake it thinking you're gonna make it, but deeper. It's deeper, babe. So I think that's a big misconception. As I said, it's characterized by persistent sadness, and they might not all appear all at once. And maybe someone is trying to fight their own battles and trying to sort it out before telling you or telling anyone, because they don't even understand why it's happening. I'm a happy person. Why am I feeling like this? And you just like, oh, guys. And then I think there are days when they're just like, I want you to go away. Sometimes there's suicide because, yeah, too much. Like, if I can mention one person that was very, very a deep story for me, Robin Williams, Mrs. Doubtfire. Oh, God, this guy was a comic. But he was depressed and he killed himself. Interesting is that sometimes it can manifest like in feeling guilty all the time, or else feeling worthless, or like hopeless, or you can't concentrate, you can't make decisions. So that's what I've found in terms of understanding what depression is and all the other things that link to how I've experienced it as well. So that's what I understand. But um, I think also something that I just want to point out, which was quite interesting for me, globally, an estimated 5% of adults suffer from depression. And as I mentioned, depression is a common mental disorder. Then more women are affected by depression than men, which is also a big question mark for me, especially this was done in 2023. So for me, I'm just like, what? Because we're seeing more males now, being depressed, and but I think these stats have changed. I need to investigate further. And sadly, depression can lead to suicide. It can be effectively treated from mild to moderate to severe depression. So I think that's the good news. That is the fact that it can be treated. So it's a mental disorder, as I said, depressive moods, loss of pleasure, of interest and activities for long periods of time. So yeah, they explain it very well from that perspective, and it really reiterates what I had mentioned as well earlier. So literally, guys, the depression, whew, a close person in my life, when she or me or someone go through depression, we just talk about the dark hole. And literally, it's dark and I can feel it. I sit there and I'm like, there's nothing I should be sad about. We have a beautiful home, great brain, great face, loving mother, sisters, brothers, cousin, uncles. Why am I sad? Why is it so dark? And that's what depression is. I can't control it. It comes. The big one for me is realizing it and trying to get myself out of it. I feel anxious about the future. Yes, I feel sad about the past. Why am I still there? Why am I constantly feeling like this? That's depression. And so, medication. How do we sort it out? Dude, talk about it. Once you figure it out, talk about it. I've said that quite a lot of times in terms of opening up. As I said, secrets tend to become worse, tend to make things worse. But depression is harder to communicate because sometimes you actually can't explain what's going on. As I said, it's darkness. How can you explain darkness? Black, you know? So, and then that's it. And you're just like, and then people are like, and how do you feel? I'm like, black, sad, you know? So there's a lot of hardness about really explaining what you're going through. How I got diagnosed and also really getting back to myself was the start of having medication. And um, medication helps because, as I said, it's a chemical imbalance, it's a mental disorder. So, but there is medication that can make you numb. And my medication at some point made me numb to the point where I was just like, nothing makes me happy. I'm taking these pills, but I'm just still like, why am I not happy? But I'm not sad, not persistently sad, but bright, you know? So after a while, um, my life came to a point where I couldn't afford the expensive ones anymore. So I stopped using expensive ones, and literally a lot of things changed. I became more aware, more present. I literally, when I actually can explain it, like this, I love movies, right? I was watching a movie this one time after I was off the pills. And I was just like, is this what the movie meant? Is this what, guys, did I watch this movie before? Literally, it felt like my eyes were opening again and I was understanding something that I knew, but now I see, you know? So that's numbness. When you're just like, okay, I'm watching a movie. Ha ha ha. Um, you know? So those, yeah, they helped me sleep though. Yo, the medication really helped me sleep because at the beginning I couldn't sleep and I still have some problems with sleeping. But right now I can say I'm off medication. I am trying to live consciously. And yes, I'll have sad days and I find different outlets to actually help me. Like get out of it, get out of the darkness, break the cycle of persistent sadness. Um, like for example, I try not to miss walking at least twice in a row. I try and not eat a lot of carbs. Um, and I try not to drink a lot. When I start seeing those things, I'm increasing doing those things. I know that, yeah, getting dark soon. Those times when you're just like, no, it's gonna get dark. And, you know, guys, as I said, I'm not advocating for stopping medication. I'm not advocating for, you know, if I eat more meat than last week, I'm definitely depressed. No, not. I'm explaining to you how it's happened to me, you know, and everything about how destructive behavior is my signal of it's getting dark. And yeah, so that's when I know that's my trigger. That's when I realize, okay, something is not okay. And the sadness, the feeling numb, the feeling out of whack, feeling of hopelessness and worthlessness are there. What also, like, I just want to, it popped into my head right now is how it started. I think there is a big link between trauma and depression. And as I mentioned in my second episode, I mentioned that I was physically abused by my father. And to any human being, that is traumatic, you know. I still talk to my dad, and yeah, this is my father. I've forgiven him. I forgive him every day, every minute he calls me to. But I think there's a lot of linkage. Like, I don't have the stats, and I wish I did right now to actually give you, and I'll find out about them. But that is, I think that's when you're just like, I was fighting to survive. I was trying to be, I grew up very fast, and I was an adult before I was 10. You know what I mean? So all those things are linked. So when it happened, my psychologist weren't surprised. Sometimes they wonder how I'm still normal, how I'm functioning, how I'm basically living this life of, you know, my survival instinct, fight, flight, or fright, were fight. I'm still fighting. So let's talk about help. How do you get help? I think the first thing is, one, tell someone of how you're feeling. Well, at least maybe let's start here. At point zero, understand what you're feeling. Admit to yourself what you're feeling. When you're sitting there and you're like, oh, something is wrong. Then, point one, talk to someone about it. Tell someone. Maybe they won't have the answer. Maybe they won't help you. Maybe they'll do nothing. Maybe it's the wrong person. Google. Find out for yourself. This is step two, how to get help. Psychologists and therapists, there are free therapists, especially if you're still at school or varsity, guidance teachers, at varsity, there's also therapists there that can help you. My first therapist was actually in varsity for free. And yeah, that was very much my second step in my life where I admitted to myself. I told someone. Then I went to see someone. And then they referred me to a doctor, which is step 4. Got medication, step 5. Uh, yeah, and then step 6 is living with it and not letting it define you. Last but not least, it doesn't go away. Yes, it gets better. I think it doesn't go away because it's a mental disorder, chemicals and stuff. You are susceptible to it. You are more prone to it. If something else happens, you like, I'm not saying you're in it's like cancer or whatever. No, dude, I don't know. I think it doesn't go away. I think it can get better. To finish off, I think I will just quote a few lines from a speech that was made by in a sitcom or series by Marcus. If you know Marcus from Ginny and Georgia, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Marcus is Ginny's boyfriend. He suffers from depression after a traumatic experience of his friend who commits suicide or is killed. I'm never sure because they haven't really explained it. But anyway, so this is basically what he says. He says, on the outside, you look the same, smiling and pretending is so much work, but inside it's a different story. You start to hate yourself. You're alone, so unbelievably alone. And you can be with someone you love, but you're really not with them. We think we know what's going on with other people, but we don't. Everyone's fighting a battle you can't see. We all have blind spots. And I'll just go to the end. It's a void, and existing takes so much energy. You want to sink into a hole of nothing, that there is where no one talks to you, and you don't have to smile or talk or be. I've been here before, gotten out of it before. The getting out part becomes the room that you remember you aren't in. And that's what's scary. Whew. Like, you have to listen to him. I probably botched that, but it's, yeah, it's a big topic, this one. It's long, and I'll probably touch on it again. In terms of, I think maybe the symptoms when you look at your family, what to look out for, what psychologists are saying. I'll do more investigation on that. I think this episode was more to talk about me experiencing it, and the way I define it as the darkness, the hole, and yeah, and but I'm fine now. I'm having a good day, and this is Miss Tesh, uDAPS, and thank you for listening. Have a good day.